Yes, guys, what's happening? And welcome back to the stream and welcome back to the channel. And a slightly different theme today. We're not going to be discussing Chelsea, but I'm going to be discussing Everton. And joining me today to discuss this is massive Everton fan, YouTuber, Kieran from Kieran Rants. Kieran, thanks again for coming on the channel, mate. Really appreciate it.
I'm doing well, thanks. Obviously, thank you for inviting me on. And I'm happy to be back. Obviously, last time I came on, weren't in the best circumstances with Everton. But as you can tell, I am much happier now with a win under our belt. And, it's interesting times at Everton at the moment.
Yeah, we're going to get into that. I mean, starting with last night, obviously such an important win for Everton last night. I think your first win in the league since September. And particularly coming on the back of that humiliation in the derby at Goodison as well. I mean, we'll get into kind of the behind the scenes things in a second, but just how important was it for Everton to get that win last night and for Rafa as well?
Well, it was massive, absolutely massive. I'll give a bit of context because this shows how big it was. No win since September 26th, which was against Norwich. How mad is that? That's 2 months without a win. Obviously, we had some good fixtures in between that, but realistically, we've lost to Brentford, Wolves, Liverpool, the Merseyside derby, and that was really the cherry on top. The Merseyside derby obviously happened on Wednesday, and there was the pressure on Rafa because if he didn't get a result against Arsenal, I think you'd see the same chance of Rafa out, the same sort of this idea that, well, where's the direction? Where's the future? And I can't emphasize how big that was because I think that I could sit on here and say that he would have got sacked if we didn't win last night, but he wouldn't have. But I feel like the fans would have. I mean, they've already turned on him, really. So it was important that he won. If he didn't win, I don't even want to think what would have happened to him.
I mean, yeah, it's clear that there's big unrest there, and that will obviously ease the pressure a little bit, but it's by no means makes everything all right again. I mean, as you said, first one win since the 26th of September. That is not good enough for Everton Football Club, given the backing they've had over the years, given how well they have done in previous years, and things have got to improve. I mean, on the pitch, just we'll stick with it. I mean, do you think this could be a bit of a turning point, or do you just think that's kind of, Damari Gray got us out of jail with a piece of brilliance? I know you had obviously a couple of goals chalked off through Richarlison, but do you think Everton can now go on and perhaps maybe string together sort of 2 or 3 wins on the bounce?
I think we can. Look, our next fixture is a Crystal Palace away from home. Difficult fixture, but I think we can get a result. We've got then Leicester and then obviously Chelsea. Now, looking at those 3 fixtures, I'd say we could get 6 points out of them fixtures. Yeah. And I feel like those 6 points are necessary for us to have a stable season, to be quite honest with you, because, you're looking at the games after Chelsea, they're not exactly difficult. I mean, we've got Burnley versus Newcastle, but if we don't win any games from now until then, the emphasis on those 2 games will be massive. And if we don't win either of those 2 games either, we're going to be in the mud. So I think we can win. I think we can get 6 points out of our next 9 games. I'm writing off Chelsea. We've not won there in 20 years. But Leicester, look, same position as us. Everyone was, a lot of Everton fans were saying we're in a relegation battle. Well, we're on the same level points as Leicester. Yeah. Palace, obviously, probably about 3-4 points ahead of us, I believe. Maybe a bit more. But, these are teams that if we want to progress on, be mid-table, be, maybe in a chance for European shots, you've got to win these games. So I'm going to say it now. We've got to win them. And you know what? Looking at the Arsenal game, it was a moment of Damari Gray brilliance that saved us because that's how we got the first goal as well. However, I'm going to use the Liverpool game as an example of we did play well in that game. We did have sort of a style. Obviously, we lost 4-1. I know that, and that I wouldn't accept that performance again. But you look at sort of what we were doing. We were pressing quite high. We were, we had a lot of players up top, and we had three in midfield in the Arsenal game, and that's obviously not what happened in the Liverpool game. But I feel like there's different elements that we've used. So in the Liverpool game, we had a 4-4-2. Yes, it didn't work overall, so probably don't use that again. But in this game, in the game against Arsenal, we eventually changed to a 4-3-3. Something along the lines of that. So yeah, I think we can get 6 points out of 9, and there is some sort of play style, I'd say maybe. Yeah, there's some sort of idea there. So yeah, I think so.
Yeah, no, it's crucial now that regardless of Everton fan sports or the manager, kind of just get behind the team, and because you do, as you said, you do really need some results in these next few games just to put a bit of a run together. But obviously, this is not really what you were expecting, was it? I spoke to you kind of a couple of months or so back. You were kind of quite confident Everton might be able to finish in the top 6. Obviously, things haven't gone quite to plan since then. I mean, we're coming up towards Christmas now, run of fixtures. What do you feel that Everton can do for the remainder of this season? Because I imagine, are you slightly revising your top 6 optimism, or do you feel that actually that could still be possible?
I think I'm looking at the top 6 and going, it's probably a bit out of our depth now. You've got West Ham, you've got the classic top 4, West Ham, Tottenham, and even Arsenal. Can you get top 6? I can't sit here and say we're going to get top 6. So I feel like the best we can potentially do is 7th, but that's probably not going to happen. I'd say realistically we'll get 9th.
I just want to quick look at the table now. I mean, you are only 6 points off 6th place. I know, that's still quite a lot of points, but it's not. It's like that can be quite surmountable, but it's gonna, as you said, it's gonna require picking up a few results, which Everton haven't looked like doing it recently. I mean, obviously Rafa's come in for a lot of stick, but it's not. I mean, you better say than I will, but I kind of feel that it's not just all him. Obviously he's not been helped by a big injury list. You've been missing your main man, CalvertLewin, for a long time. Doucouré's been out in midfield. Alan, you've had defensive issues at the back as well. I mean, does Rafa need to be cut a little bit of slack? And obviously things going on off the pitch with the likes of Brands and Moshiri as well. Do you feel that he's carrying the can for things that are also out of his control?
Well, yeah, that's what, that always happens with the manager. They always take the front of the blame. And what I would say about Benitez is he's had £1.7 million to spend in the summer, and all of those signings, bar Begovic. I mean, you know what? 75%, because there was 3 out of 4. 3 out of 4 of the signings were good signings. Begovic, not so much, but I can't complain at any of the signings he made. Tactically, game to game, he's been wrong in some games, but you've seen the likes of Thomas Tuchel be wrong. You know what I mean? You've seen the likes of Klopp be wrong some games. And I think the main thing I would say is about Rafa and his injury problem again. We've got another injury crisis as we did last year. Dominic CalvertLewin's out this time. Mean is out this time. Obviously, he came back and then was injured again against Arsenal, so that's not too good. And we've had Doucouré out for 2 months. We've had Alan out for a period of time. We've had Digne out. And actually, there's a little thing on Digne because he was left out of the squad yesterday. But that's not due to injury. But I think that's another topic that we can talk about later. But on the injury part, Rafa, he's had a hard time. Your best centre-back, your best midfielder, and your best striker's gone out. It's very hard to pick up results. Especially when you're replacing those people with players that are no bigger than mid-table. It's very hard to get results. So I feel like I'll forgive Rafa for this period of time because he should have won certain games. But I'll forgive Rafa if we come out of December with 12, 15 points. So that's a win pretty much. That's winning every game by Chelsea.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite a big ask, but I mean, Everton are a sort of side that are capable of doing it. They're a funny side at the moment. Can obviously not win for a long time, then could sort of win 4 or 5 on the bounce. It just depends. But I was wanting to move on to a little bit about Moshiri. I'm not sure if you've seen this graphic that they brought up on Sky Sports before the game last night. I mean, since he's come in, I'm just going to bring this up now. You've gone through 5 or 6 managers and spent hundreds of millions of pounds. I mean, what are your views on Moshiri? Because looking from the outside in, it feels like not really very much has improved since he's come in. I mean, would that be a fair assessment? I mean, I've just kind of brought this up now, the graphic. You can see that, obviously, since Moshiri come in 2016, you've gone through Roberto Martinez left, Koeman, Allardyce, Silva, Carlo, Rafa. You can see the large amounts of money that are being spent, and yet are Everton really any better off than when David Moyes was there?
Well, what I'd say about the difference between Moshiri and Kenwright, because obviously Kenwright was in charge when Moyes was in, is that under Kenwright we had no money to spend. So we were just scraping by in a few seasons. But I think that under Kenwright and under Moyes especially, Moyes identified characters. And this goes more down to not even the amount you spend, but who you sign. And I think that I think with obviously the Moyes era is that every player we signed was more than likely under £10 million. So they were very cheap. And Moyes identified a certain character in them, which was you fight for the ball, you fight for the team, 110%, 90 minutes of the game, the full 90, you fight for the team, and you try and win. You know what I mean? You've got that mentality that you give everything for the club, a bit like what Demarai Gray does. And what I would say about Kenwright is that he's not a good owner because he was not putting any money in whatsoever. However, what Kenwright did is he didn't really get involved in the transfers. He didn't really have a big say over the transfers, I don't think. If anyone older than me wants to correct me on that, please do. But I don't think he did. I think it was more Moyes. Moyes targeted certain players and brought them in with the funds of Kenwright. Whereas with Moshiri, see how much we've spent there. I mean, some of the figures are quite disgusting, I think, especially that Silva 2019 season. That was, oh my God, I'm sorry. That wasn't the first season under Silva was great. Like that was a really good window, I would say. Was
that when you brought Richarlison in, wasn't it?
Yeah, so the first season I think we brought in, I think it was Richarlison. Was it? Yeah, I think it was Yerry Mina and Digne came. I forgot which window it was, but it was around that time. But the main one was Richarlison, obviously. But that second season of Iwobi, Gabamin, you're looking at the likes of Fabian Delph as well. It was
Walcott
really
as well.
Who? Sorry.
Walcott as well. That was poor, wasn't it?
Walcott. Oh, you know what? The worst one. I'd say the worst window was definitely Allardyce's one. Walcott and Tucson. 50 million between them.
Oh, mate. He was awful, wasn't he? He's still an Everton player as well.
He still is. And we can go through the whole, every single transfer we've done.
I mean, even Moise Ken as well is looking like a poor signing. As you mentioned, Gababin barely played. Even someone like, I know Gylfi Sigurdsson for legal reasons is kind of been frozen out, not really been much more on that I've come across. But again, he was 50 million pounds as well, and he's hardly done anything in an Everton shirt.
Yeah, well, have a look. So from 2017 to 18, that was the summer where we spent about what? So we spent 70 million on Rooney, Sigurdsson, and Claflin. Silva's first season was fine. Silva's second season was awful. And that was with Moise Keane, that was with Gabamin, that was with Iwobi. And you know what a common trend is? A common trend between the bad transfers is Moshiri. And here's my problem with Moshiri. Yes, he spends a lot of money, which we didn't have. And it's good that we've got a lot of money. I appreciate you bringing in, 565 million pounds you spent plus the stadium as well. You spent that much, and Kenwright didn't do that. But my problem with Moshiri is you have a breakdown of those transfers. He's in charge of a lot of them. For example, Moshiri wanted to buy Alex Iwobi for 35 million. Brands didn't.
Yeah.
I'm not having a go at Ben Godfrey because I think it was a class signing, but an example of how Moshiri sort of does his works is Ben Godfrey for financial fair play. We broke financial fair play, I believe, because we bought Ben Godfrey. So by buying Ben Godfrey, we could not spend more than 1.7 million in the next summer, and I think that shows how gun-ho Moshiri is with his money. He's just splashing out everywhere like it doesn't matter, and I would say our club hasn't necessarily gone backwards, but it's gone in the wrong direction. When you bring in owners who have a lot of money, have a desire to do something, normally they have a plan. You've seen that with the Newcastle owners. You've seen that with the City owners. Moshiri's got a lot of money, but no plan. And the reason we're complaining at him is because he's getting too involved in it. I'd rather have an owner who spends 30 million every year without getting involved in any of it than having an owner who spends 100 million and has to have his final say on every single transfer, has to be basically a part of the transfer team. Like, that's what Moshiri basically does. You know what I mean? Because we wouldn't have signed Iwobi if it wasn't for him. We wouldn't have signed Godfrey if it wasn't for him. And I actually like Godfrey, so I'm not going to slate him too much for that. But it's more the consequences with Godfrey. That's the main issue. I think, in my opinion, ends justify the means in that one because Godfrey's a quality player and we're probably going to get an upsell value of about 60 million on him in the future, potentially. But still, it's just, he's too involved. And this is why, when we talk about Brands as well, it's Moshiri and Brands didn't have the same vision.
No.
Vision.
I mean, obviously, we looked at the money spent, £586 million. Obviously, that's not net spend, but £586 million has gone out. The club have spent that money. Would you not expect more from that investment? Because when you look back at it, what have Everton really got to show for that investment since Moshiri come in? And it's not a lot, is it? It's not a trophy. It's not really getting close to a trophy. And yeah, okay, the new stadium's coming. But other than that, there's not a lot to shout home about, is there?
Yeah, well, you spend 565 million. You'd expect top 4. It's top 6.
Well, you've got to be getting European football.
Yeah, you got to be. And we haven't. And that's not Rafa's fault. That's not that's not even Carlo's fault, to be honest with you. No. It all spawned from Koeman. And, really you're looking at it and you're going, we've spent 565 million here. And what are we getting out of it? Nothing. Yeah, and that shows how bad the transfer's been. I mean, honestly, how can you spend 565 million and get it so wrong? It's really baffling. It's really baffling. It just shows there's no one in charge. No one's got a vision. No one's got an idea. And, you look at our youth academy as well. Our youth academy is being absolutely stagnated.
And nothing's coming through, is it? I mean, you had Tom Davis and Gordon plays a little bit as well, doesn't he?
Gordon came through. But, Gordon, Tom Davis, Ross Barkley, those are the most notable players we've had. And Ross Barkley was going to be a star, but obviously, we went to Chelsea and everything happened.
Not great, yeah.
You look at it, we haven't produced any good academy graduates. Realistically, who have we produced in the last 10, 15 years?
No one.
No one, and that's the problem. How can your youth academy do that? I mean, our youth academies, it's thrived upon being one of the best in the sense of in the actual league.
Yeah.
We win all the trophies, but even though we're winning all the trophies in the under-23s, it's because your best players are playing in your actual first team. So, like some months, he's not stuck in the under-23 still, is he? He's gone out and he's his first starter at Chelsea, and that's the problem. There's no direct route from the academy to our first team. And yes, fine and dandy winning all the trophies under 23s, but that's hindering our ability in the first team as well. Because, you think about it, if we had a good youth academy, you had the likes of Mason Mounts, you had the likes of, I'll look at Arsenal, Smith Rowe, Bukayo Saka, and Nketiah. You had those players coming through to our first team.
Well, even Man United as well. They've got, likes of Greenwood, Rashford, etc. Yeah,
we wouldn't have to invest as much as Moshiri has been doing. You know what I mean? And this is why you can just see there's no plan there, because Moshiri has been just I don't know what his plan is. That's the thing. I don't have a clue what his plan is, and that's what he's.
And like, to be fair, when you on the academy as well, when you see I mean Liverpool to an extent, the academy is very good. Like Trent Alexander-Arnold's come through it. Obviously Curtis Davis is a young lad at the moment. I can't remember his name, but he's been getting a few minutes as well. I mean, just referring to my team, Chelsea, mate, we've got 5 or 6 first team players from the academy starting. That has saved us an absolute fortune. I mean, that's saved us hundreds of millions of pounds. And yet, for a club like Everton, who perhaps, I've got a lot of money now, but obviously haven't been able to spend it, like investing in the academy could save them so much. And I think for those young boys, young Scouse lads coming up through Merseyside, etc., that's going to mean so much more for them coming through the system and getting into that first team. But I mean, moving on to obviously Marcel Brands, the news broke Sunday night that he was leaving, obviously director of football. We've kind of seen, I'm sure you've seen it, the video doing the rounds on socials of him getting into a bit of an altercation with a fan after the derby and saying it's not just down to the players. I mean, I'm not really sure what he meant about that, probably referring to things away from the pitch. I mean,
when he said that quote, I think he was referring to the manager.
Yeah.
I think.
And I mean, obviously, Brands has been okay. I mean, you'll have obviously a better view than I do on it. But I mean, some of the recruitment has been good. Other recruitment has been terrible. But as you touched on, he probably hasn't given the sign off. He doesn't agree on all those signings, but Moshiri's kind of overruled him on that. How disappointed are you that Brands has moved on? And is this a kind of a Moshiri saying Rafa's our man and he's going to be in charge of the transfers now as well? And that's kind of that.
Well, I think it's a double-edged sword because I don't know what his job was. I don't know how much control he had. And the thing is, I don't know if to sell him. Before the news broke when he left, right? On the surface of it, he had some good signings, he had some bad signings. But you see a news break now about him not being in charge of Iwobi and him not being in charge of the bad signings. And the thing is with Brands, I think he was part of the problem. He had to go. But was that because he had no control over. I honestly question what was Brands' job, and I don't know. This is the thing. I don't know if to be happy or sad about it, because on the one side we could say, oh, Brands is in charge of all the transfers, and he's has to be taken account. He has to reap the consequences of all those transfers. Blah blah blah, whatever. Like he's in charge of all. He's in charge of all of that. And that's why it's a good thing that he's gone, because he has been in charge of it. We haven't worked out on the transfer department. That's where we're going wrong. So it's good that he's gone. However, there's a different side to it, because it seems like Brands has signed all the good players. And Moshiri's brought in all the bad players. So when Moshiri comes out and says, Brands is gone, I'm coming in, and Benitez is having full charge, doesn't exactly inspire me with confidence, because I mean, if you'll let me, I think I've got actually a list of all of here we go, list of all Newcastle signings. Can I put it up?
Yeah, mate, crack it on.
So
Yeah,
these are all the signings done under Benitez, and the Toffee Blues showed this. But you look at all these signings here. I'm not sure if you can really read them, but if they come up, but you've got the likes of.
Oh, there we go.
There's just no one there. Matt Ritchie for 10 million, Dwight Gale for 10 million, Almiron for 20 million. I mean, the only good one there was Almiron.
I mean, and I think Rondon is sorry to cut in, mate. Rondon is a dreadful signing, and that's blatantly a Benitez signing as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's not cracked on. He's not cracked on at all. And I just don't know. Look at it again. I mean, there's some good signings there. Fabian Schär for 3 million, I guess, but none of those players, I mean, really are inspiring you with much confidence, bar probably Dubravka for 3 million again. But it's just, it seems like you look at it, you look at Benitez's former signings and you're just thinking to yourself, like, is he going to be the right man to actually sort of progress, to buy players and progress us to Europe? Because that's what we want to do at the end of the day. And will those players be good enough? And I want to see in January, because maybe he'll have a bigger budget than at Newcastle.
Yeah, you'd like to think so. I don't know how the financial fair play situation is currently at Everton, but you'd like to think there'd be a bit of money to spend. But I mean, on Brands, do you feel like the kind of writing was on the wall for him? Obviously, the head of the medicals was sacked as well, and that by all means would fall under kind of a sporting, like a director of football. That's like a footballing decision that would kind of fall down to him. But by all means, Benitez moved him on. Do you feel that once kind of your position is being undermined, other people are making decisions for you that you should be making, there's kind of the writings on the wall for him there a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, at the start of summer, he signed a 3-year contract, but then as soon as Benitez comes in, it's like, no, you're frozen out. And I don't think any of the signings done by Benitez were a brand signing.
No, I mean, like this in the chat now, like saying that obviously Townsend, I doubt Townsend is a brand signing. Definitely not.
I think the only one in contention being a brand signing is Damari Gray, but it seems like the type of profile that Rafa would go for, a very cheap winger who's sort of not done that well recently. You know what I mean? Like so to me, it just seems like a Rafa signing, that one. And I think Brands, the writing was on the wall for him until obviously when Benitez came in, it was just on the wall for him. I don't think there was any chance he was going to make it till the end of the season, especially with the run of form we're on, with the protests that are going on, fix the board, and all this. And he was on, he was going to go regardless, I think. So yeah, it's sad to see, but it is what it is, isn't it?
I mean, and also, what do you make of the fact that, like, obviously as a sporting director, you recommend players to sign, and you get the manager turning around and giving the boot on them, basically. I mean, Denzel Dumfries, I think we spoke about him when you come on the channel previously, how good a signing that he would have been, given the fact that Seamus Coleman has just got constant injury issues at the moment. And obviously he's gone on to Inter Milan. He's doing really well there. And Benitez obviously put the boot in on that one. When you hear things like that, how frustrating is that as a fan? Because there's potentially decent players that could come to the club, but the manager just doesn't fancy them.
Yeah, I mean, the Dumfries one is interesting, though, because I mean, did we have the financial capacity for it? I don't
think he was that expensive.
Yeah, I know he wasn't expensive, but I question the Dumfries one, because if it was clear that Rafa went, no, we don't want him, I think that shows. And you're actually seeing that with Digne now. I think Rafa does not like fullbacks at attack. I think Rafa wants fullbacks that stay back. So maybe Dumfries not coming was probably a good thing for us, because the same thing might have happened as what's happening with Luca Digne at the moment, where he looks like from the outside in, he's getting frozen out because he's been criticised by Rafa. Digne has criticised Rafa's tactics. That's right. And the Denzel Dumfries one. I mean, it's a shame, but I'm not actually surprised thinking about it. You know what I mean? But it's still one of them where you go, Denzel Dumfries is a good name to have. I mean, could you imagine bringing him in? It'd be a really good bargain, but yeah,
it would have been a great one. I mean, just kind of moving back to like managers and kind of Moshiri as well. I mean, I don't think Brands gets a lot of say in the management, but do you feel when you look back at the managers that have been in under Moshiri, the likes of Marco Silva, Koeman, Allardyce, Ancelotti, etc. I mean, these are all completely different types of manager with completely different ideas and completely different footballing philosophies. Do you almost feel that Everton at the moment have kind of lost their identity and don't know what direction they want to go in? Because I mean, I was reading things that, Marcel Brands would have been keen to bring in someone like Graham Potter, more of a long-term vision. These managers like your Ancelottis, like your Benitez's, they're not going to be at a club long-term, I wouldn't have thought. I mean, do you feel that the club's kind of lost its identity and just getting management appointments wrong?
Yeah, well, I think Brands and Marco Silva was probably, he probably did have some say in the Marco Silva one. Young manager who's not really proven himself yet but can prove himself. Carlo, I think Carlo, he didn't want him.
No.
And I don't think he wanted Rafa in either. Because I think what Brands wants is a younger manager, someone who's not going to... Because I assume when Carlo walks into the room, he goes, I want X, Y, and Z. Rafa does the same. I want X, Y, and Z. You saw that. Ancelotti goes, I want Rodriguez. Rafa goes, I want Townsend. Brands probably doesn't like that. Brands probably likes it where Marco Silva, I'll use Marco Silva as an example. I assume Marco Silva and Brands sat down together, identified targets and agreed on them. Whereas I'd assume something in the Everton dressing room when Carlo was there would be Carlo going, I want this player, I want this player.
Oh, yeah, I'll just say, like, Carlo wanted... I mean, it kind of works two ways. I mean, some of those players wouldn't have come to Everton if it wasn't for Carlo, but likewise, James, complete disaster. Alan injured. I mean, I think it's not fair to judge him but I mean, some of the signings Ancelotti made were poor as well. So I mean, I mean, Everton have gone. It's interesting though, because I mean, I don't know. I mean, I remember speaking to you, and you were like a while ago, and you were quite keen for Nuno, which you're glad now didn't happen. But I mean, what do you think? I mean, obviously Benitez is here now. I mean, it's quite clear, but the removal of Brands that Moshiri backs his man and wants Rafa to have more control in kind of the top to bottom running of the club. Obviously, results speak for themselves and it could become untenable. But like, what sort of manager would you like to see at Everton? Because they've gone down sort of the up and coming with the likes of Marco Silva and the experience with Ancelotti and Benitez. I mean, do you feel Benitez is the right direction for Everton? Or is it a young up and coming manager like a Graham Potter actually a better way to go?
I'd say, look, right now Rafa's not going to get sacked. But if Rafa was to get sacked, Graham Potter would not be a bad shout.
Yeah.
And I know I've actually criticised Graham Potter a lot. I called him, you know what I mean? You've probably seen it. I do criticise Potter a lot. And I will tell you why I criticise Potter a lot. Because, he'd be a great manager for us. And I think he'd actually do the business for Everton. But the reason I criticise him at Brighton is because they are just the XG merchants. They just really good style of football, but they cannot finish their shots. So if Potter did come to Everton, I mean, it probably would be a good fit because you've got Dominic CalvertLewin there, you've got Richarlison, you've got even Rondon, I will say. And if you can't get them scoring, you've got a big problem. So I think I wouldn't mind Potter, but it needs to be someone who knows what it means to be an Evertonian. And they don't have to be from the area or whatnot, but they need to care about the club, you know what I mean? They need to have... This is why I said Arteta wouldn't be too bad, or Rooney, or... Well, I wouldn't go out and find, I wouldn't go out and get Rooney. I wouldn't go out and get Duncan Ferguson either. But if West came to West, I would accept them. And I think that they wouldn't do that bad of a job because they'll bring back a sense of identity. They'll bring back a sense of, and this is what we're missing. This is like, if you want to pin one problem at Everton right now, it's just identity. It's just like normally you look to your manager for identity and normally you look for your team for identity, but we don't have that. We've got a mixed team with many players from different managers. And we've got a manager who is an ex-Liverpool manager, so that's going to turn a sour taste for many people. So we just need to bring in someone who is an Everton man. It's as simple as that. Someone who knows what it means to be an Everton fan, or at least be an Evertonian, you know what I mean? Something like that. And you can't go wrong there, because if they're giving 110%, you've seen it with Gordon, you're not going to get criminalised for it, you know what I mean?
I mean, obviously, like Rafa's kept Big Dunk in the staff, but do you feel like it's also a little bit of an issue is that there's not enough people within the coaching setup that actually know enough about the football club and what it means to kind of play for Everton and be in and around it? I mean, you've got Benitez coming in who, let's be honest, probably, I mean, he's got an idea, but you know, those lads, they're like that growing up on Merseyside or been in and around it for years and years. I mean, I'm not saying they're easy to find, but it's probably going to be more beneficial to have people that know the club inside out within your coaching staff rather than just a set of coaches coming in that just view it as another job.
Yeah. Well, that's what we need. It's exactly what we need. And, you know, that's not going to come in with Rafa Benitez. And I don't think it would come in with Potter. I think that it may never come in. It may never come in because it's just, it's about who's at the top. It's about Moshiri. Does he, you know, if I could sit down to Moshiri and tell him what the hell's going on, I would, because I feel like no one's told him what's gone wrong.
Yeah, mate.
You've got no Everton men in there. You've got no one who knows what it means to be an Everton fan in there. That's why you're going wrong. So. Yeah,
it is. I mean, mate, just to kind of round off, obviously we've got January coming up. Hopefully you'd like to think there's a bit more money than £1.5 million to spend. That was in the summer. Benitez, obviously with Brands' departure, as we've touched on, is probably going to have more of a say in the transfers. Do you feel that Moshiri is going to back him and there will be investment in the window? And do you need investment in January?
Yes, definitely. We need a cam and we need a right back. And actually, I don't know any players, but I've got someone coming on tomorrow on my channel, obviously, talking about this. And obviously, I'll talk about it now. But they sort of are identifying players to come in. I don't know any players to come in, but all I know is I want a right back and I want a cam. That's what I know. So, you know what? If you ask me that tomorrow, I'll definitely know who I want. But I think in January, we've sold Moise Keane. So we'll get about 10 to 20 million to spend this summer, or this January. We sold James Rodriguez for 8 million. So we actually made a profit on James Rodriguez. So I think you're looking at probably I'd say 20, 30 million we can spend in January. If things go our way, maybe not. Maybe I might be wrong. We might only be able to spend it on loans. But, you know, you're looking at, if we've got 30 million, hypothetically, if we have got 30 million, you know, you're looking at Lingard. You're looking at Van der Beek. Just have a look at these big clubs who Hudson-Odoi. I mean, how much games? Look, I'm not saying we'd ever get Hudson-Odoi because I know he gets game time under Thomas Tuchel, but you know, someone of the caliber of Hudson-Odoi, someone who, Ziyech. Honestly, I'm not saying we'd ever get him, and it seems like a wild shout, but he's not. As far as I know, he's not getting any game time at Chelsea.
He's getting a bit more recently, but I mean, even someone like Donny van der Beek, you know, there's been like he was close to joining Everton on loan before, and he's like January could be a possibility for him to join on loan again if his game time doesn't improve under Rangnick, then that's a possibility, and that's the sort of sign that would be great for Everton. Someone like a Donny van der Beek, someone that can kind of link the midfield to the attack, but. Yeah, I mean, the recruitment's going to be critical because it's been poor for too long now. But yeah, like money, it's hard in January to identify good value for money signings, but sometimes you just have to pay a little bit over the odds to get someone in if they're worth it. But mate, as little things come in, do you miss James?
No, I don't miss James. No. You know what? You know what's happening to Luca Digne at the moment? I'll give you a little rundown. Luca Digne's been what looks like it seems like he's been frozen out the squad because there was a report last week that a player had been criticising Rafa Benitez's play style, his defensive play style. There's only really one or two players who would say that. Luca Digne was left out of the squad yesterday. He's not injured, confirmed. That is confirmed. He's not injured. So we think that Digne looks like he's been frozen out by Rafa. So if Digne could leave in January, this is a real possibility. And this is going back to January. If Digne leaves in January, we are spending a lot of money in.
I'd take him at Chelsea. Yeah. He'd be great at that left wing back spot with Chilwell out. Yeah.
This is the thing that might make me a bit fearful. Like you know, Chelsea are going to be looking at them. every team in the Champions League would take Digne, bar probably Man City.
Yeah.
Man City, Liverpool, and maybe Man United as well. Apart from the clubs in actually England, I think a lot of clubs would take Luca Digne. I really
do. 100%. And I think also last thing on that, obviously Rafa before the game yesterday, when asked about his absence, was like very coy on it. He didn't give an explanation at all, which obviously kind of lends credit to what you're saying, the fact that he's kind of been frozen out for potentially criticising the manager, because Benitez wasn't forthcoming with an answer as to why Luca Digne weren't in the squad last night. So yeah, I think that's also quite telling. But yeah, man, that seems like a good point to wrap up. Mate, thanks so much for joining me to chat all things Everton. It's always good to get to talk about other teams. So, mate, really appreciate it as always. Guys, make sure you subscribe to Kieran's channel. He's obviously closing in on that 10K mark. So make sure you click that subscribe button, help him on his way. As always, make sure you smash a like on this video, subscribe to my channel as well. I'm not quite closing in on 10K, but pretty close to that 200 mark now. So make sure we get there. Kieran, once again, thanks a lot, mate. And guys, I'll catch you in the Zenit St. Petersburg review tomorrow night. Yeah, so cheers for watching. Thanks a lot.